Our first dealing with the 25 mobility President Jonathan with new with street lane trans
from the city. Was improved. Like she offered feet. area, the F road, actually, vegetation, and some communities have gone as far as to meter the parking spaces. Others have adopted a residential permit program where they provide a discount to residents that park there, and visitors would actually pay a fee. But communities have found that through parking revenues, they can actually use that to help address some of the maintenance issues for the swales, for the vegetation, for the pavement markings itself. And so it's a low cost way. Trails, sidewalks can cost upwards to $2 or $3 million a mile now, depending if you have your own pavement machine or you've got to hire an engineering firm and a contractor to do it. You can pave $10,000 to $50,000 a mile using striping. So you can actually get a pretty big bang for your buck just for using the asphalt that's already out there today. So this sort of sets the process, and there's a lot more detail in the plan itself for how these would work. But this is something that many communities have started to embrace. And this is envisioned as a pilot project around the downtown area, around the TOD area. If it works, if it's successful and you get resident buy-in, it could then be expanded elsewhere into the city. The city has also an ongoing traffic calming program. There's a separate consultant that's done a traffic calming study for the city, and they've identified a number of different types of treatments. The difference between a Green Street and a traffic calming is traffic calming tends to be spot specific. It's either a mini roundabout, it's a chicane, it's a neck down, it's a speed bump, a raised intersection, whereas the Green Streets happen to focus the entire corridor itself in looking at ways to reduce the pavement width to slow down traffic. They're both effective. Traffic calming sometimes is tended to be a little bit more controversial, and depending if you need right-of-way or utilities, also more expensive endeavor as well. But we have recognized the plan. There is funding that is identified in the mobility fee and in the mobility plan calculations. So the city could actually use portions of the mobility fee to redo both a roadway and implement traffic calming measures. We looked at, when we developed the plan and the fee, the study area, which is principally the major roads within the city. We also look at some of the connectivity in the corridors that go through North Miami Beach and through unincorporated areas as well, because the city does have several enclaves, and we didn't just necessarily stop at city limits when we identified improvements or looked at traffic. We went to a logical terminus. We've identified, as part of the previous study, the executive summary, that was about 20 pages of text and graphics and then a bunch of maps. The technical report itself is over 200 pages, and it gets into all the statutory requirements, legal requirements, the data, the analysis. It's principally for these two folks up here, the legal counsel, for others that want to look at the study and make sure that it meets both case law and statutory requirements. So that is all detailed. It is also available on the city's website, and it really forms and lays out the basis for the mobility fee calculation. If you have any questions, you want me to go into other components of it or how calculations are done, I'd be happy to do so. But in general, it's something I've been doing for a number of years now, and it's just part of the process. And if you have trouble sleeping at night, it's a good document to read, because it'll probably put you to sleep, unless you really are involved in impact fees and mobility fees.
Okay. Mr. Cook?
All right. I just had a few more here
Okay.
real quick. Yeah, sorry. We're almost wrapped up. So one of the last components is the assessment area. So this basically says where the mobility fees are assessed. So this is a city fee. It's imposed on new development within the city. So this really just maps that out. And then what we've also identified is if there are areas in unincorporated county that annex into the city, we've identified these. So if the city does that, they wouldn't need to amend this map. The mobility fee would automatically be assessed on any new development that gets annexed into the city. There's one other component of this. It's called a benefit district. So the assessment areas is where the money is assessed and where it's collected by the city. The benefit district illustrates where it can be spent. So, it's sort of, similar, but two different components of it. And you've got to identify a benefit district. Because we looked at the water taxi service, because we've identified improvements in the enclaves within the city, we've both included the city itself and identified other areas outside of it that would be eligible if the city council wanted to spend some of the money on improvements. So say there's a improvement along US 1, or there's a proposed roadway coming out of Solomia, or some connectivity which goes both within the city and then maybe the city of North Palm Beach or unincorporated area. The city council could use portions of that funds to complete that project. And that's one of the primary ways that we've seen mobility fees used, is they are in conjunction with either development, other projects that are resurfacing, or a gas tax project, or some other type of rehabilitation or widening. The city having funds can go to the county or the state and say, instead of just putting back a 5-foot sidewalk or a 4-foot bike lane, can you put in a shared use pathway, 8 foot wide? Can you put in some crosswalks, some landscaping? Can you make this a buffered bike lane versus a regular bike lane? So it's really an opportunity to be a little bit more proactive. And also, should the water taxi or other types of improvements be out there, the city commission would have some, or council would have some ability to allocate funds towards that. This fee is somewhat unique, and it's a little bit different than the city's other impact fees, in that it assesses residential development per square foot. So it's the same rate, but it's assessed per square footage. So if you build a 600 square foot studio, you pay for 600 square feet, not per dwelling unit. If you build a 4,000 square foot house, you pay for 4,000 square feet. So you pay the same dollar amount, but the larger homes would pay more because they have a potentially a greater impact. And we've done analysis to show that there's a correlation between the size of a home, the number of bedrooms, and the number of vehicles that are present. It's going to really start impacting the city as you start to see more teardowns and redevelopment within the city itself. As the land around you gets more expensive, and as communities start to look in here, and I know in talking to your development director, there's one street that already has 6 homes that were previously tore down, and now they're building 6 3,000 square foot plus homes along those areas. So this fee would actually capture the difference between what the home is today and what the new home is. So if you tear down a 1,000 square foot house and you build a 4,000 square foot house on top of it, or on that parcel of land, you would pay for the additional 3,000 square feet. And this is something that in a lot of communities here, you're either going to have apartments or townhomes or condos and newer developments, and they're going to have their own square footage per dwelling unit, or you're going to have tear downs and larger homes built. So this is a way to capture both parts of those. Multifamily, they don't pay for common lobbies, they don't pay for hallways or open areas. They pay per square foot for the dwelling unit itself. Likewise, a residential unit would pay per the square footage of the development. The one exception is for garages or porches that aren't habitable, they would not pay for that square footage. And this is just part of the analysis we went into. We actually pulled the property appraisers data and looked at every single family, multifamily, townhome, condo in the city, the number of bedrooms, the square footage of it, and actually did an analysis. And basically what we found, and what we find in many communities, is as homes get larger, there are more bedrooms per home. More bedrooms equals more vehicles, and then using national travel data, there's a direct correlation towards more vehicles, more trips, more impact. So this is a different approach. It's something that I've actually been using for 20 years now in many of the communities I've worked in, and it's something almost every fee that I do now going forward migrates towards. Because it also addresses affordability. If you build a smaller home, or you build a studio, or you build some workforce housing, from a technical basis, you'd still pay less because the unit itself is smaller. If you build a larger home, you have more impact. There's other types of ancillary trips that come to it. You'd pay progressively more. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of this detail, but there's all other types of land uses, places of worship, offices, medical offices. They're all assessed fees per square footage or per unit of measure. The one unique one I will point out is for retail. In addition to, say, a fast food restaurant, the fee charges per drive-through lane as well. What we've noticed is there's a trend towards reducing the footprint of buildings, but adding more drive-through lanes. And it's really the drive-through lanes that have the impact to the transportation system. So this fee charges per drive-through lane. So if a Chick-fil-A came in with 2 drive-throughs, they'd pay per both. McDonald's comes in to add a drive-through, they'd pay for the additional drive-through lane. Likewise, bank branches are getting smaller, but they're either going to freestanding drive-up ATMs or separated ATMs. They all generate traffic as well, so they would pay likewise for those type of freestanding ATM uses. The last component is vehicle fueling. So whether it's charge your vehicle or to put gas in it, most people think of a Wawa or a Circle K. There are other types of uses as well, such as a Costco, the Walmarts. Some parts of Florida, even the Dollar Generals are getting into the gas station game. But if you have a gas pump and you fuel a vehicle, or you have a charging station and you charge for it, not if you have a residential development and you have a garage and you provide charging for your residents, or you have a use such as City Hall that provides charging, if it's not a commercial activity like a gas station or a charging station charging for it, you don't pay a fee. But if you have it and it's a commercial activity, you would actually pay the fee per position. And with that, there's just a number of other implementation steps that the city can consider identifying in the plan. This establishes the basis if it wanted to move away from traffic concurrency and road level of service. There are other standards that could be adopted by the city, and those are identified in the plan. Anything further than this would require an amendment to the comprehensive plan and additional discussion by the city council. There are also a number of other programs that we've identified. This is the first step in a multi-step process for each one of these types of projects to be implemented and looked at further. The next step is we're here this evening for the workshop. There is a first reading scheduled on October 22nd. The City Council gives us direction to make any changes. We'll make those changes, make updates, and then the adoption hearing is scheduled for November 26th. Florida statute requires a 90-day period from the date of notice. The city's elected to go from the date of adoption. So 90 days after the date of adoption, the fee would go into effect. It's proposed for some time in the last part of February. Most likely the 1st of March 2025 would be the date that these would go into an effect. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, before we do that, I'd like to open a public hearing if anybody would like to come up and make some comments. We do have the 2 dates for the public workshops. We have 2 dates, but if you'd like to inquire now, please come up. Sarah?
Hi, Sarah McDevitt, 14490 Northeast 10th Avenue. Yeah, it's dense. He's right. I did look through some of it today. I'm hopeful, just because the fee schedule was kind of fast, and we're relying on a single person for the information on what other municipalities are charging on that fee schedule. I would hope that there's some in-depth review by city staff and other informed people to just kind of look at how we might drive an agenda with the fee schedule. He mentioned the charging stations. In some cases, it seems really high if we're trying to incentivize more people to use electric vehicles, just to have a better understanding, and hopefully there's some people taking a look at that. I was also just curious about the reasoning behind the pedestrian priority spaces on some of the main corridors, and maybe when we get into the public workshops, there'll be more information on that, but it just seemed like, we already have a really heavily taxed main corridors, and if those become pedestrian priority seats, at least is the way I read it, it would reduce the number of vehicles that can travel on some of those, and so I wanted to understand that a little bit better. And then the final thing that I was just kind of, 2 things. First, I love the Green Streets idea, and I really love the idea of one-ways, my area floods a lot, and it's something that I've brought up many times. Can we reduce the number of vehicles we have traveling two directions when we get flooding, to bring it down to a single lane? And if we permanently brought it down to a one-way, it would really help us when we have flooding events, or just to increase the swales, but also having people going two directions when your street is flooded makes a terrible mess in your home. And then the final thing is, how do we guarantee the funds from this go to implementation? We're going to be collecting a lot of money, and it would be nice to see if in the plan there's a really clear outline to make sure that the money doesn't go into the general fund, that it actually goes to implementing the traffic calming and other traffic improvements we need in our community. So, yeah, that's what I'd like to know.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Anyone else like to come up? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. We'll start to my right. Mr. Each.
I have several questions. First of all, where did we come up with the fee schedule? I'm looking at some of those fees. You want to go to a doctor's office, you have a small doctor's office, and you want to build a new facility, you're getting hit pretty hard. And then I started looking at all the fees that we charge when we build a building. And I'll give you an example. The next project that we're looking at, they're going to be paying $5,900,000 just in impact fees, so forth and so on. So you add in another $300,000-400,000 to the project. The final person that's going to pay that isn't going to be the developer. It's going to be the person that moves in there, or the person that uses that store or the doctor's facility. And those are questions that I wanted to ask you. Like, right now we have the impact fee, the building permits, the community give back. When you get a development going, well, we need $300,000 for this project or that project. It starts to add up. And my other question to you, well, my first question is, what other cities around us, does North Miami Beach have this? Does Opelika have it? Miami Shores, Biscayne Park? What I don't want to see happening is that we make these schedules so high, these fees so high, that the developers say, to hell with this, I don't want to come to North Miami. And I'm afraid some of these fees in here, I thought, now I'm not a contractor, but I thought they were really way out there. Now I know we need to improve our sidewalks and everything, but that was one of the questions that I have for you. Let me see, I wrote down when we look at our traffic pattern in this county, the city has limited ability. We don't have any authority over the traffic signals. We don't have any authority over the signs. If we want no parking signs put up on our streets, we have to beg the county. I just went through this with our traffic people over there. To get no parking signs up, they have to have a certain sticker on it before they become enforceable. You have to have an engineering study, a traffic engineering study. Years ago, and I'm going back when I was a young guy, I used to be the traffic sergeant in the city, so just bringing that up. But we really don't have authority over lights, signs, so forth and so on. Now, you have a state road, 125th Street, 135th Street. That's under the state. US 1's under the state. We can't even get street lights fixed, for God's sakes, on these streets. And it's, so our ability to do a lot of these things is limited, other than what we can do with some of the infrastructure on the city streets. You mentioned something that I thought was interesting also, the bicycle paths. I think it's absolute lunacy to put a bicycle path on Biscayne Boulevard when you got cars traveling at 60 miles an hour. People are just going to get creamed out there. One of the things that I suggested, and I didn't get to it, I try to start reading this in depth, is you talked about alleyways. And I think alleyways would be a great idea to fix them up and to utilize them as bike paths. I want to get into this a heck of a lot more. I just got the packet yesterday. I must have read about 100 pages today, and my mind is, like you said, it's a good thing to fall asleep with. But those are some of the questions that I have for you. And the other one is, you mentioned something that the developer will get credit for something outside of his immediate area or her immediate area. What was that about? I didn't quite follow that.
So, a lot of great questions that you had. We'll start with that one first and then kind of work
Thank
backwards
you.
on.
I threw them out there, sorry.
In terms of what we found is developers have site-related obligations. So their footprint of their development,
Right.
they've got certain things they have to do. Oftentimes what happens, not all developments say use a full block.
Okay.
They'll use maybe half a block. And you may have another project, another parcel over, or two parcels over, that they make an improvement. So now you've got a real nice sidewalk here, a real nice sidewalk here, and then you've got something in between that may or may not ever get built or redeveloped. There are ways through the mobility fee working with the developer to say, the assumption is right of way is available and they have the room to do it
Okay.
because they don't have they don't have eminent domain authority. But if there is the opportunity and there's right of way, they could make an improvement that extends, say, a 5-foot sidewalk, they widen it to 10 foot.
Okay.
They could then widen that 10 foot all the way to the next intersection. Okay. That's an off-site improvement.
Okay.
That would be, considered an exaction if you just said, Mr. Developer,
Okay,
go
I got you.
go widen that sidewalk for us just because you're developing.
I got you.
Here you can say, please widen that sidewalk for us, and instead of you paying
I
all
got
your
it.
credit,
I got it.
you
Thank
get
you.
that.
Okay.
In terms of going back, I agree with you on the green alleyways. In terms of the bicycle facility on Biscayne Boulevard, there's only portions of it where they could add the additional buffer. We've really focused on parallel to the state road because you can't do really much of anything on the state road system. So we do think that your city streets, which you can put bike lanes on, your alleyways that you can make some improvements on, those are the real opportunities for that. The issue of whether or not the fees are too high or not too high, I mean, that is a legitimate concern. Anytime you add additional fees, either a mobility fee, an impact fee, or any other type of fee, it does generate costs of development. And that's a policy decision that the city council is going to have to weigh in terms of how much do you assess versus how much do you need to fund the infrastructure. So, I mean, it's a legitimate concern. We've looked at what the needs are, looked at what the costs are, and established a fee. The fee represents the maximum it could be. The city council could adopt a lower rate if it so chose to, but really it does come down to a policy issue of what do you need to fund and what do you need to
Where did
build.
these fees come from? Is that like state or who put these fees out there?
Well, I actually documented how we calculated them in the technical report itself. So it's based on the impacts, the trips generated by development, the length of the trip, how much capacity they need to accommodate those trips, and types of capacity that we're providing. The city can't necessarily widen roads, but it can make sidewalk improvements, it can make bicycle improvements, and those are really the driver to what the costs are.
Okay, that part I understand the amount of traffic on the roadway and the formulas and all that. But what I don't understand is, okay, I think it's $2.47 for a residential home per square foot,
Mm-hmm.
not including the garage and patio, so forth and so on. One of the things I seen in your logo was equity. Now we start looking at affordable housing, that starts to get to be a lot of money. And it's there's got to be a happy point here. And I don't think 247 is a square, that's just kind of kicking the can down the house. Okay, well, I live in Keystone Point, so I'm going to put up a $3 million home, a 3,000 square foot house, but that adds to it. But how about the poor house on the west side of Northwest 7th Avenue or 8th Avenue that's a moderate income or lower moderate income? How does that person afford it? It starts to get to be a sticky wicky. Is that standard 247 nationwide or
Oh
county?
no, it's specific to North Miami. I mean, that's actually low. To be quite honest with you, that's actually so for a 1,000 square foot house, it'd be $2,400. For a 2,000 square foot house, it'd be about $5,000. it's not the highest, it's not the lowest, but I mean, there are many fees that are out there that are significantly higher than that. In terms of the affordability, there is a statutory provision that the city council can waive impact fees and mobility fees for affordable housing. So if the city council chose and development met affordability criteria, they can actually waive those fees if they elect to do so.
Well, one of the things, I think in the last census, I think we're 60% of our population is below the poverty line. Am I correct on that, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. And so, you want to give people home ownership. And, maybe $2,000 isn't a heck of a lot to me or some multi-million-dollar developer, but to some person that's struggling by on $45,000, $50,000 a year, that's a heck of a lot of money. I just got this packet yesterday, and I don't know when you guys got it, but I think there's a heck of a lot of stuff in here that I really would like to read on before I offer really a sound opinion on it. I think it's a good plan overall, but I think these fees can be kind of exorbitant. You're looking at the gas tax, and then certificate of occupancy, business tax. You have DERMS fees, mobility fees now. The community givebacks, the building permits, the impact fees, stormwater runoff. I mean, we start to run it up. Does North Miami Beach have this? This would be a city that we're not necessarily in competition with, but do they have this? Would the developers say, well, you know what? Geez, North Miami, you're getting very expensive here, but I'd rather go up to North Miami Beach, or I'd rather go over to Aventura, or I'd rather go over to Sunny Isles. I wonder about that. And, I know, well, okay, development is going now. People are moving to Florida, and we're going to build. Well, what I'm seeing now with the amount of building coming up, the rents are starting to go down pretty fast. So is there a state of equilibrium here where we can do both things but at a reasonable cost? That's my big concern. I was at a homeowners meeting the other night, and we were talking about the infrastructure, which obviously we have to. We do have an infrastructure plan out there right now. I have to get back to the homeowners on that. There is a plan out there. The Public Works Department has that. There are impact fees. That's a special fund. This, I believe, one of the people brought it up. This would be in a special fund. This would not be co-mixed with the general fund. This is in the, as I was reading, it would have to be
Correct.
Separate, audited separate.
There is a separate fund that has to be paid into, and
go on to someone else. I had a couple of more questions here, Mike, and I'll get back to
Dr.
it.
Besson?
Yes, enjoyed your presentation. Have a couple of questions. When you, by the way, Kenny talked about so many of the things that I was thinking about that he already addressed, so we'll limit it to other things. What is the concept of slowing down the traffic, and how would you implement that?
in essence, the concept of slowing down traffic is one of the primary ways to make the roads safer for people to walk, bicycle, and access transit. There's been a number of studies that show as speed increases, the chance of a fatality involving either the people driving or people crossing the street or walking goes up exponentially. Some of the data we have is based on when most vehicles were primary cars. There's new data and studies showing that it's even worse now because of SUVs, trucks, and larger vehicles. And one of the most effective ways that you can help alleviate that or minimize fatalities and severity of crashes is slowing down cars. The city has ability to do it on its streets and on working with the county on county roads. The state of Florida has the authority on the state road system to establish speed limits there. But in terms of, when you look at the, say, pedestrian priority streets, the question came up. We aren't talking about doing things to the roadway itself on state roads because that's really beyond the authority of the city. What the city can do is work with developers to improve sidewalks, work with DOT to improve the sidewalks, and make improvements walking along the corridor and sometimes even crossing the corridors, not necessarily narrowing the travel lanes. A lot of your previous plans recommended removing on-street parking on the state road, narrowing travel lanes, adding in bike lanes, and those all became infeasible. But there are a number of ways, and the primary way is as the width of the travel lanes decreases, it's been shown that people drive slower. As you introduce on-street bicycle lanes, as you introduce on-street parking using the roadways itself, people tend to drive slower. Right now, what happens on most of your city streets, people don't park on the street. Sidewalks are offset a little bit, and there's 24 foot wide of asphalt, most of the time with no center lane marking either. And that's basically providing 24 foot of width for somebody to speed down. So some of these concepts would be stripe that roadway so it goes from, say, 24 foot to 16 foot. Either has a bike lane on both sides or on-street parking on both sides. And, we've done analyses and tests with fire departments throughout the state on what width of streets can they, easily navigate. They can't navigate 8 foot. 9 foot's really, really tough in terms of, total width. 10 foot, a good driver can go down in a fire truck at a decent speed. 11, 12 feet. So what we found is kind of a 12 foot to 16 foot total width is ideal to still allow emergency vehicles to get through. So that still gives you 8 feet upwards to 10 feet to work with. Either putting an 8 foot on-street parking and then providing a 2 foot buffer between the roadway and when you open your car door, provides you, still 16 feet for the vehicles, 8 foot for the on-street parking. If you go down to a one-way pair connection, you can provide a bike lane on the street, 12 foot to 14 foot width for the one-way, and then an additional 8 foot to 10 foot for the on-street parking. And you can do this at a relatively low cost compared to some of the other projects that we're talking about. All those factors help to slow down traffic, and then you integrate traffic calming at your intersections, narrowing some of those, putting in more stop signs or speed tables. That's really a way to help slow down traffic, which primarily ends up being cut through traffic because they're tired of being stuck on US 1 or 125th or 135th, so they end up going through the neighborhoods, speeding through the neighborhoods to see if they can get around some of the congestion. Well, if you don't make it as friendly, and it's pretty friendly right now, to cut through the neighborhoods and drive through, that's really what the plan can focus on and the fee can help fund. And you are correct. I mean, there's only, the state's probably a little bit easier. They've gotten a little bit more progressive in terms of how they've been doing things, but Department of Transportation is still focused on moving cars. Miami-Dade still has a mission to provide mobility through multiple jurisdictions with their roadways. So the city has the greatest ability to impact its roads and then work with the city and county to help make improvements to theirs. And unfortunately, all these improvements cost money. There are other ways to be efficient and effective, like using your alleyways, like using your existing roads and reconfiguring them to be cost effective. But when you start talking about a big sidewalk or a big trail along a state road or a county road, then your costs do tend to go up for those projects.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, Mr. Bob?
Come back to me. I have a number of questions.
Okay. Oh, yeah, turn your mic on, Bob.
Yeah, I have a number of questions, but they'll come back to me. Just want to make sure it's not covered already. And when you get the chance, the resident raised some questions before, if you'll...
I will address those, yes.
Okay, Mr. Seifried.
Thank you. You've already addressed issues of fees, and I understand some of them could be considered prohibitive, but we really can't see the future. We do know that we're inundated in cars. We've built a car-centric society for the last 100 years, and we've absolutely got to make changes. I would support this plan as presented, recognizing that 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, the plan will be massaged and there'll be changes. It's a living document. This is not cut in stone, but it clearly provides room for improvement in this city over a 20-year period. I would hope I would live 20 years to see this plan fully implemented. Of course, it is my intention to make my centennial, and I'm only 73, so what's another 27 years? We get it finished, and I have 7 years to actually utilize it. So, based on that, I would go ahead and support this as presented, knowing that in a few years, this will be massaged and changed as long as we don't lose our sense of direction. Fees will go up, fees will go down. Clearly, anytime you want to improve a roadway, you're going to have to spend money, and you've got to get it from somewhere. And since most of the city is built out, there really are very few vacant lots left in this town, and developers are buying up every square inch that they can possibly get their hands on. The time is going to come in a few more years where there's not going to be any vacant land left. So I think the sooner we implement this, the better we're going to be for the long term. Clearly, the future of this city is to build up, since we can't very well build out. And when you build up, you get an increase in population and an increase in the need for better transportation, greater mobility. I like to see more electric bicycles and more mopeds and electric scooters and all that sort of thing. And it's a bit discouraging when you drive down the neighborhoods and find 5 cars in front of half the houses on the block. I think we've done what we can do with the automobile. Yes, we'll get them electrified in the next 20 years and lower some costs and improve the air quality, and that's all wonderful. But the fact is, right now, we're drowning in cars. We need to do something different, and so I will support this as presented in the full faith and belief that it will be massaged and modified as long as we don't water it down. So that's what I've got to say. Gentlemen, ask your questions, but we're not going to get all the answers tonight. This has to be implemented and see what happens.
Mr. Bob?
Yeah, my question was really just more so about landscaping. So during these projects where the sidewalks are being expanded, there's going to be accommodations, adjustments to the roads. Obviously, there's going to be a loss of greenery, right? So trees will be need to cut down, that sort of thing. What is the plan as far as replacing those, taking inventory of those, like where they'd be replaced? Is it going to be in the same spot?
Well, the intent is, because we're not primarily focusing on a lot of roadways, would be hopefully to use the existing tree canopy and work around it and add multimodal improvements that work with the existing tree canopy. So I don't know that's the intent of any of this stuff to remove canopy. If anything, it's to add more as projects are built. Now, with that said, certain corridors, certain development comes in, there's only so many opportunities they have sometimes to do that, largely because of utilities, more so than anything. But, this plan envisions how do you provide more space and how do you integrate landscaping in with these overall types of improvements as opposed to reducing it. And one of the big things with the green streets or the traffic calming is how do you get cars parked off of the swales, which they're parked on now, get them parked on the roadway so you can actually reintroduce vegetation onto your city streets. And the good and bad is, most of your city streets have pretty wide rights-of-way. So there is a lot of opportunities to reintroduce landscaping as you make improvements, to the extent you're not giving that to the vehicles, and that you reuse your asphalt that's already out there. You've got a number of roads right around your downtown here. We've identified several as curbless shared streets. They're 150, 160 foot right away. You could land a plane on some of the corridors that you're talking about. Because, maybe at one point it was envisioned as a big 4-lane roadway, but, you could tear up half of that roadway and green it. Literally, I mean, several of your city streets right around where you're at today, take out that asphalt, put in some green infrastructure, and you could still have a functioning two-way road with on-street parking, with bike lanes, or a curbless shared street. So there's a lot of opportunities to reintroduce landscaping as part of this. And one other component I didn't get into a whole lot of detail on, it's a recommendation. It's something they'd have to work on further. And I've just been successful in two communities, Altamont Springs in Central Florida and Okaloosa County up in the Panhandle, Destin area, replacing road level of service standards with street quality of service standards. So right now, your comp plan still says 135th, 125th, you want to maintain a D. Well, it's impossible to maintain a D. Those roads are already over capacity. They're failed. In order to maintain a D, you'd have to 6-lane or 8-lane them. Well, they're still in your comp plan saying that you're going to maintain that. So what a lot of communities said is, we're not in the road widening business anymore. We're not in the road tracking business anymore. Let's eliminate it and let's look at something we can control, i.e. posted speed limits. So we've been successful in getting rid of level of service and adopting a simple policy with a simple premise. The posted speed limit, if that's going to be your standard, you design your roads how you want cars to drive, not how they're driving today. So the way speed limits are set on most roadways is how fast are the cars already driving today? And should it be higher than what it's posted at? Or should we design our roadway 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour faster than the actual posted speed limit? So if you've ever found yourself driving on some of your residential streets and you look down at your speedometer really quick and you're going 30 miles an hour, 35, and not even thinking about it, a 24-foot wide residential street is designed for cars to move at 35 miles an hour. That's how it's designed. It's 12-foot wide travel lanes. There's no impediments, no restrictions on flow, so people will drive faster on them. This policy is saying, if you want somebody to drive 25 miles an hour on your street, design it for 25 miles an hour. That's not how it works today. It's design it 25 plus 5, 25 plus 10. It says design it for the speed you want to go. And now you no longer have to worry about counting cars on 125th, counting cars on US 1. You're saying our priority is slower speeds in our community. We're going to set these standards, and you know what that really does? The ability for you to place a tree within the right-of-way is dictated based on the speed of the roadway. The faster the speed, the further those trees need to be separated from the travel lanes. The slower the speed, the closer those trees can actually be to the roadway itself. So all these things kind of work in conjunction. By lowering your speed limits, lowering your standards, provides opportunities to actually add more streetscape into your overall infrastructure plan. And that's, this is, when I say this is the first step, this is the first step of multi-process. Altamont, they adopted this thing 10 years ago. I'm already gone through, I'm going actually through the third update right now. Now they're fully getting away from roadway capacity, roadway level service, and fully embracing multimodal. Miami Beach already did it a number of years ago. Other communities are doing it as well. So this really sets the stage to do that. And the city has the flexibility to be as innovative as they want to be, with the exception is you can't force the state to change the speed limit. The state has authority over the state roads.
Is that it?
Yes.
You finished?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Don't forget, you have one more commissioner.
yeah. Edward, do you have any comment?
I mean, I like the presentation. I think you did a great job presenting it. Fee aside, I mean, I think enough people have touched on that. As an avid cyclist, I like the biking lanes, and so I'm happy at the first step. I think it opens up the conversation. As my fellow Kevin said, it'll probably be massaged a little bit, so I'm a big component for it. Thank you.
Yeah. My only comment is, and thank you very much for the presentation, it was very good. You know, there's a lot of practical matters that you don't have any control over, obviously. We just recently had FDOT do some work here. They were told that it would drive traffic into the neighborhoods. They did it anyway. And indeed, we have now substantially increased traffic throughout the neighborhoods thanks to FDOT. The practical thing is we need traffic calming devices. That has to be a priority in the neighborhoods, because these neighborhoods are full of children. And the second thing is, unless there's law enforcement, I mean, I drive these streets every day, and I could probably give 100 tickets a day. You have bike lanes. Nobody uses the bike lanes anymore. All the electric bicycles are in the travel lanes of cars, like with the electric skateboards. And they routinely run through red lights. I mean, I see it every single day. They pretend like there's they don't use the bike lanes, they don't use the sidewalks, they use the regular vehicle travel lanes, and they just disregard every traffic law there is. How are you going to deal with those? That's all of a sudden a change now that you have these people that are now getting electric bikes. They feel they can disregard the bike lanes. Let's travel with the cars. I've seen 2 accidents within the last month with electric bikes. Well, one electric bike and one skateboard. Luckily, they weren't fatal, but that's how things are changing. So to me, it's more back to practical of how this money is going to be used.
Well, and you raise a really good point, and that really gets into part of the implementation of this is you can't necessarily design it one street at a time. I mean, in terms of one reason I like to use the pavement markings as an approach is it can be something that can be done relatively quickly, relatively fast. You combine it with traffic calming in an area that you have problems, and you can help to address some of those issues you're talking about. And sometimes, they do end up riding in the streets because the bike lanes have either cars parked in them, litter, debris, broken glass, whatnot. So there are a lot of design things, and I spent quite a bit of time riding around in this community. There are a lot of things that can be done to improve overall design and functionality to change behaviors as well. And I will say, if a street's properly designed, you don't have a law enforcement issue. And some communities have even gone down to the step of removing asphalt and making travel lanes narrower. Not suggesting doing that in the community, but some communities have done that. And so if you design your streets right, looking at one-way pairs, chicanes, diverters, traffic calming plus narrowing travel lane widths, you can actually help to affect and influence travel behavior. And I see, it's not just a St. Augustine or a Gainesville. I mean, there have been other communities that have been successful doing this, but it takes a different mindset. And, DOT doesn't always help, pushing traffic out into you. So that's really an opportunity to say, well, you're not going to ever get anybody complying when you've got a whole bunch of asphalt for people to ride in, or ride a bicycle in, drive a car in. But finding ways to maybe reducing some of that is a way to help change behavior.
Possibly. Okay, anybody,
yeah,
any other comments?
Let's say, for example, we have a structure going up. It's going to be a medical office, and I forget what the fee is. $30. How much?
It's $8 a square foot.
And a couple of years go by, and it's not working out. Now we change the use, and either we go to let's say a fast food restaurant or a convenience store. I think that's even a higher fee. Do you recapture that fee? I don't recall reading in the.
In the ordinance itself, what it would say is, say you're a medical use and you go to a retail, you would calculate your fee based on the medical use. That's your existing. Then you calculate it on whatever your proposed use is. If it's higher, they would just pay the difference. They wouldn't pay the whole thing. They would pay the difference. And likewise, if somebody is revitalizing an existing use that's out there, they would get credit for that use that's already existing, and that would reduce their amount for whatever it is that they're proposing.
All right, okay. That was,
All right. Okay. Do I hear a motion to?
Mike, I want to,
Oh, no?
go ahead. Yeah, I would make a motion, but what really concerns me is the fee schedule. And I would like to make
We do have some upcoming workshops. Would you give us the date of the workshops again?
Actually, I would say we've actually, I was going to mention this, we've actually just had the 2 workshops this week.
I think you had one person show up.
Yeah, we had one person in the first one, and then we had a few more of the second workshop. So, the workshops have been held on this, so I was going to answer some of the questions that were raised earlier if you want me to do so. But yeah, the workshop, there have been workshops held. But some of your commissioners also spoke. This is really the first step. And part of the reason why it's called an action plan is because there's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of detail on these projects. So there's going to be opportunities to revisit these projects, revisit these plans to further define them as you go through it. So this is not going to be the first. This sets the stage. This is certainly not going to be the first opportunity to comment on any of the projects.
Well,
Okay.
what I was going
I
to,
have a comment. I'm so sorry. We have a
Wait,
lot
you
of
cannot speak from back there.
Sarah,
Ma'am,
Sarah,
ma'am.
not yet.
community workshops. But where are we published? Let's just can we find that out because nobody that I know heard about those.
Anyway,
Gary.
so, Commissioner, before you make your motion, I'd like to ask Mr. Paul a question, and maybe that will help.
I wasn't going to make, okay. Okay, Councilor.
Can you explain a little bit how the fees themselves were derived? Is it based upon a set of projects, and then based upon a distribution of the kinds of uses you're expecting, allocating the fees to the various uses that you're expecting?
So the basis for the project is the mobility plan. So the projects that we've identified in the mobility plan cost a certain dollar amount. Okay. They also provide a certain amount of capacity. So you basically say how much it costs versus the capacity provides a rate per unit of capacity. I think it's $200, $300 per unit of capacity. So then a single family home, for instance, because we looked at the square footage, it generates roughly a demand of 5 person trips per 1,000 square feet. So you take the 5 times the number, and that gets you the $2.46. So the projects drive the overall rate that's then applied to each individual land use. And the reason why you see differences in the rates, an office use generates about 10 trips to 11 trips per 1,000 square feet. A medical use generates 33 trips per 1,000 square feet. A grocery store generates 100 trips per 1,000 square feet. A gas station, 350 upwards to 400. A fast food could be as 500 in terms of 500 trips per 1,000 square feet. So it really, each one of these uses has an impact associated with it. And these rates that we use, they're rates that are used throughout the country. We use the IT trip generation. We use trip lengths that are published for the state of Florida. We use those factors to calculate what is the impact of an individual use, then what is their share of the overall cost of the mobility plan. And then that's how we end up getting the individual mobility fees.
And the effect of reducing any of the rates that a particular use would be charged would affect the budget available to produce projects?
It would. I mean, any types of, any reduction in this would lower the money available to fund it. What's been found and what the courts have stated is your fee can't be higher than what your technical support, your technical fee calculates. It could be lower or phased in if you so chose to. But this is the maximum rate that could be charged defensively to implement your plan.
So, Mike, then that $247 a square foot for residential, is that the same price that Miami Beach would be paying?
I believe Miami Beach is actually upwards to $6
Okay.
per square foot.
Okay.
So they're paying significantly more. I don't know about North Miami Beach. I do know that Aventura has a higher fee. Pretty sure Ball Harbor has one. North Miami Beach, so I'm not sure about.
They have the mobility plan, North Miami Beach?
Well, they have a road impact fee,
I'm sorry?
a roadway impact fee. They're still charging for road capacity.
Okay. You know, the only thing I would do is, I don't mind passing this, but I would put a caveat in there, I would request that the city council review these fees, because when we have 60% of our population here below the poverty line, and, you know, I know we're hitting the developers and the business people for it, but I don't know, I looked at it, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I just thought it was kind of steep in some air. And I like the idea that we're paying for the infrastructure, so forth and so on, but or rather the roadway. But I would put that caveat in there, Mike.
Okay, hold on one second, please. We're having some technical problems. A question was raised in the audience in reference to the workshops. You know, how they were published, et cetera, because it had such a bad turnout. Is part of the process going before subsequent to the city council? Is there part of the process to have workshops following that, or how does that work? Or will it go directly to a second reading and then approval, or will there be an opportunity for other workshops for the citizens to be involved?
So it's a great question. There was a workshop held this past Tuesday evening, and then another one on Wednesday morning. It was advertised to the various city social media outlets. They posted on their Instagram, on their website. They sent out a flyer to certain, I'm not sure to what extent they sent it out. In terms of what's required, typically there's not a workshop required for a fee. It's basically the Planning Commission and then the City Council. So I will say that these projects, while they form the basis of the fee, they still would have to be prioritized, budgeted for in the capital improvements program. They would still have to be designed. They'd still have to be engineered. So there's a lot of steps that go forward that have to be done after this. This sort of just says these are the projects that are identified. Each one of them is going to require a lot more vetting, a lot more of analysis. And that's something that they would likely start having workshops on when these projects go from the basis for a fee to actually moving forward with design, moving forward towards implementation. So that's really, you know, the workshops were held and noticed as a courtesy. They're not technically required. And part of it is because a lot of this stuff will be follow-on after it is adopted.
Mr. Each, you wanted to make a motion?
I make a motion we approve it with the caveat of asking the city council to review the fees.
Okay. Do we have a second to that? Motion and second. Can we have a roll call, please? The motion was made by Mr. Each, seconded by Mr. Besson. Dr. Besson.
Vice Chair Michael McDermott,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenny Each,
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Seafried,
Yes.
Commissioner Edward Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Bob,
Yes.
and Commissioner Robert Besson.
Yes.
The item carries.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
Thank you all.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. The second is a quasi judicial item. And can we have everybody stand to be sworn in if you're going to be speaking on this particular project? Okay. Counsel?
Do you
Swear
swear?
them in? Yeah.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony and evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. The item that come before us is PC 1799. A resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving an application for a conditional use permit in substantially the attached form for a proposed mixed-use development consisting of a 17-story, 348-unit residential building with approximately 40,000 square feet of ground-level commercial space and 636 parking spaces on 5 parcels of real property located at 1175 Northeast 125th Street, 1195 Northeast 125th Street, 1174 Northeast 128th Street, and 1140 Northeast 126th Street, and 4 adjacent vacant lots. Said parcels are specifically identified with Miami-Dade folio numbers 06 2229 034 0640 06 2229 054 0680 06 2229 034 0010 06 2229 034 0020 06 2229 034 0030 06 2229 034 0570 06 2229 034 0080 and 06 229 034 0580, and total approximately 2.3 acres, 101,300 square feet, in accordance with Article 3, Division 4, Section 3042 through 3407, Article 4, Division 2, Section 4202, Section 4203A, and Section 4205 in Article 4, Division 3, Section 43010 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Chapter 29, entitled Land Development Regulation, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wait.
Derek,
Can you go ahead and do disclosures?
Pardon?
Disclosures.
Yes, and disclosures? Kenny?
No, we had a brief conversation, not even a conversation. I was at a homeowners meeting, and one of the people there showed me the agenda, and I said I don't discuss anything other than on the dais.
Okay. All right. I've received calls for and against. Mr. Bob? Mr. Seyfried?
I had one phone call just asking if I'd looked over the packet yet, and I hadn't received the packet, so that really didn't go anywhere.
Okay. We'll have to wait for Dr. Besson. Dr. Besson, any disclosures?
No, sir.
Okay. All right.
Mike? Keep forgetting.
Yeah, I have no
commissioner sitting
disclosures.
right there. You have another commissioner.
Yeah. Edwidge?
No disclosures.
Okay. All right, staff?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Derek Cook with the City of North Miami's Development Services Department. As stated, the item before you is a conditional use permit for the property generally located at 1175 Northeast 125th Street. As a clarification, there are actually 8 parcels that are being utilized for the development. 3 of them are vacant lots. 5 of them have addresses that were read out in the statement by Mr. Chair. So what you have before you is, again, a conditional use permit, and they're seeking to have allotted 348 floating bonus units. It was stated by the chairperson, you have these addresses: 1175 Northeast 125th, 1195 Northeast 125th, 1174 Northeast 126th Street, 1140 Northeast 126th Street, and 3 adjacent lots. The total size is 101,300 square feet, which is approximately 2.325 acres. The current use of office buildings and parking lots and some vacant lots. The zoning for the property is C3 commercial office on the future land use map that is central business commercial. It also has overlays of the planned corridor development, the Arcs and Design District, and the North Miami Transit Station Overlay District. The Transit Station Overlay District allows for maximum height of 200 feet and a maximum density of 150 units per acre. The proposal is a 17-story mixed-use residential building, as stated, with 348 units. It also has approximately 39,255 square feet of ground floor commercial space, and they are offering 636 parking spaces. There will be 100% Florida natives vegetation to create absorption of the landscape and water, and it will be a certified green building. Public art will be a part of it, and it will be enhanced stormwater. The economic impact is anticipated to have 1,441 short-term direct and indirect construction jobs, accumulating $44 million. The ad valorem is anticipated to be $1.2 million annually. Portion of that will be going towards the North Miami Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA, and you're looking at an impact fees of approximately $5.4 million. Conditions of this conditional use permit: they will require development review committee, construction of a minimum 10-foot wide on sidewalks on Northeast 125th Street, a minimum of 6-foot wide sidewalks on Northeast 12th Avenue and Northeast 126th Street. All utilities will be underground. They would need to obtain a certificate of use and a business tax receipt prior to a certificate of occupancy. They will provide, as stated, LEED certified or equivalent certification, green building certification prior to the certificate of occupancy. They will have sustainable commitments to low impact development activities, and public art must be installed or completed prior to the certificate of occupancy. The next step for this item will be going to City Council for October the 22nd, and Development Review Committee review is to be determined, and the city site plan approval will be determined as well. Additionally, we looked at several criteria associated with the approval of the CUP. And these criteria deal with: one, dealing with the application consistent with the comprehensive land use. It is consistent with the comprehensive land use as a development proposed through this conditional use permit per a policy 1.29 that states that the city will encourage a range of housing options. This proposed development will provide much needed modern apartment units in the most poverty-stricken census area of our city. So it would be an improvement. Also, the housing element, it supports, according to the city's of North Miami's 2015 through 2019 consolidated plan that prepared by the United States Housing and Urban Development. The city has an aging housing supply, which means that many of the units are likely to need improvement and may contain lead-based paint. This construction will bring in new housing units within the city. You had an economic impact that we have for goals and policies. The development is contemplated through the request is consistent with the goals and objectives of this policy of economic elements. The city comprehensive plan, particularly Goal 9 and Policy 981 and Policy 966. First, it will help improve the economic vitality and physical strength of the city through a mix of incurring and non-incurring positive physical impacts, including but not limited to total construction, full-time jobs being provided, and ongoing direct annual post-construction full-time jobs associated with this new development. Concurrency elements. We talked about for water supply. The subject property is within the city's water supply area and shall be required to connect with public water system. wastewater disposal. The subject property is within the city sanitation and sewer services. Stormwater management. The property is required to maintain all stormwater within its own property, and they will implement policies within their civil engineering to ensure that. 2, the application is in compliance with the district's regulations applicable to proposed development, including bonus provisions in Section 4-205. This project, as is stated, is within the North Miami Transit Station Overlay District. That overlay district allows for bonus units up to 150 units per acre. The application is consistent with the applicable development standards of the LDRs. It is consistent with the elements of the LDR. The LDRs through this overlay district allows for this unit to be developed through the conditional use permit. Also, the underlying zoning is C3, which allows for commercial use, which they are proposing. As a parking element, they are proposing 636 parking spaces. The total parking spaces that were required was 680. They are seeking a slight reduction in the parking by providing for sustainable parking, such as van pool, carpool, and hybrid parking spaces. They also are adding additional bicycle parking spaces on the site to compensate for this reduction. The site for this proposed use relates to streets and highways adequate width and pavement to carry the quantity of the traffic that is stated. We believe that this is the case. The applicant has brought with them their traffic study that will go in more detail with this information. That the proposed use is compatible with the nature, conditions, and development adjacent to use, buildings, structures, and will not be adversely impacted. So we know where this property is located. This property is located at the corner of Northeast 12th Avenue and Northeast 125th. It's with relative walking distance from here. Immediately to the north of the property, we have the new development, which is Residence Gardens. That is having 359 units, and it's a mixed-use development. So you know, to the east of it, you have a school. To the west of it is commercial use. Across the street from it is commercial use. This is compatible with that element. The proposed use is compatible with the nature and conditions for adjacent uses and building and structures. Excuse me, I've said that. The parcel proposed for development is adequate in size and shape to accommodate it. As stated, the parcel is 2.3 acres. Based on the zoning overlay district with 150 units per acre, the 348 units is the maximum number of units that they will be allowed for this size of a lot. The proposed use will not be adverse in impact for livability and value and development of adjacent properties. As stated, immediately to the east is a school, across the street is commercial, to the west of it is commercial, and to the north of it is a new multifamily mixed-use development. The nature of this proposed development is not detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. Multifamily residential development will provide for new, safe, and modern market-rate multifamily units, auxiliary on-site amenities for future residents, in furtherance with Goal 3.3A.1 of the housing element of the city's comprehensive plan, which aims to ensure that housing in the city is decent, safe, and sanitary to serve the needs of the city present and future residents. This proposed development will be an asset to the community and will not adversely impact the public health, safety, and general welfare of the residents. The design of the use created a form and function which enhanced the community character and immediate vicinity of parcels proposed for development. As already stated, you know, to the west of it, if you look at the site, you have the school, you have office building. If you see immediately to the north of it, you have a 9-story new building that is proposed. This is 17 stories. This is right on the corner of our major thoroughfare. This is compatible with that element of our city. Looking at the site, you can see that they have amenities that's going to be on the middle floor above the garage area. This is another visual of the building. This is looking from the east, looking westward. And this is a ground floor on the northeast 126th Street. And you look, that's to the north, that's the new garden residence that they will be abutting on, on the north side of the property. Flexibility in regards to development standards is justified by the benefit to the community character and the immediate vicinity of the parcels proposed for the development. The applicant is not seeking for any deviations other than the reduce in the parking of it, which is clearly required, allowed by our code. They're allowed in the code to reduce through resiliency, as stated earlier. They're seeking to do resiliency uses, van pool, carpool, and hybrid parking spaces. In addition, they are adding more parking spaces for bicycle. No open violations exist at this site. Based on this, staff is recommending approval of this conditional use permit, and we leave it in your hands for review. And the applicant is here to take questions and provide a presentation.
Okay.
This is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Thank you, Board, for allowing us to come before you today. My name is Arthur Sawyer with Sawyer Solutions. It's been my pleasure to serve as a consultant for Tate Capital in this mixed-use project, 1175 Northeast 125th Street. Throughout the completion of this conditional use permit, our team worked diligently with the staff to ensure that this project aligns with the community vision and needs. We're excited to present this innovative development, which promises to enhance with the blend of residential, commercial, and recreational uses. This project will not only boost local economic growth, but also foster a vibrant community atmosphere. Thank you for your support, and look forward to this project being a positive impact here in the city of North Miami. One thing I do want to put on the record, if you pass by now, it may look like construction is going on. We did tear down the building on the northeast corner, on the southeast corner, actually. But that is, right now, there's a lease agreement in place for 5 years for paddleball courts to go there. So that has nothing to do with the project that's before you now. That's a temporary use that the city's already given us approval for. So that's paddleball courts. Don't think that we've already started doing construction for this. This project is going to be down the line.
Mr. Sawyer, so this project is 5 years in the future.
Yes, that's what we anticipate, 5 years in the future, sir.
It's not something happening.
Will not happen in January, no.
Okay.
Yeah. That being said, we do have Mr. Robert Behar here from Behar Farm and Partners, as well as Corey Dorman, who's actually here as well. That'll be able to discuss any traffic needs or impact on utility services. Okay. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you. For the record, Robert Behar, Behar Fund and Partners. I promise I'm not going to take as long as the mobility plan presentation. It'll be much quicker. This project is very exciting. Why? Because it is bringing 348 units to the city, new units to the city. We are incorporating approximately 40,000 square feet of commercial retail component, which we anticipate we're looking to a future grocery store at that location. I'm going to go very quickly on some of the points, and then I'm going to do the little presentation. On the parking reduction, we are required the 680. We are looking at a small reduction of 44 spaces to 636. Why? Because keep in mind, we have a commercial component that we're providing 134 spaces that at nighttime is not going to be used. So our residents are going to be able to utilize some spaces as well. So 636 spaces for 348 units is a lot, much more than we need. We are not asking for anything else other than those spaces. And something that I think is going to be, even though we say it's going to be 5 years out, we're going to be ready when the city's ready for us. Because right now the infrastructure needs some work, but it could be 5 years, hopefully it could be a little bit less than that. So we're not going to commit to say, I think 5 years until we know we're ready for it. With that in mind, I'm going to start the presentation, and you can see the ground floor, which consists of two components, the residential component on your left and the commercial component on your right. The way we've done it is that we have clearly separated both of them, not to commingle the parking or the services, other than the loading area, which is shared in the middle. On the left side, you have the residential component, which will bring in nice entrance, on to 125th Street, and you have the small commercial space there, the lobby, the elevators. On the back side is where you have the separate entrance to the garage for the residential, for the residents. So we don't mix them with the commercial. On the right hand side, you can see the blue area, which is a large commercial retail where the grocery store hopefully will go. And on the back side, you also have the entrance to the garage. You're going to have multiple levels of parking, but something that we're doing, and on the residential floor, 2nd through 5th, we are putting some residential unit fronting 125th. We want to create some activity, some habitable space, residential unit overlooking 125th Street. I think urbanistically, that is really a good thing to do, because you're going to bring eyes to the streets versus just a garage. As you go up the podium on the 5th level is where you have the rec level. You're going to have a large recreation for the amenities for the residents. The building is comprised of a U-shape, so you have units looking into the amenity decks and as well as to the outside. And that goes floor 6 through 16. I think that there may be a little 17, but in actually 16 stories what we have. Again, it's 348 units, consists of approximately 9 studios, 121 one bedroom, 165 two bedrooms, 53 three bedrooms. This is really a family community, which we're trying to do with an asset to the community of bringing a grocery store. That's basically it as far as the project. You saw some of the renderings. If I get to it. This is one from 125th. You could see the residential component, and then on the first 5 stories, and then the building in the back. You're going to see that the idea of the right side where the grocery store, I'm leaving it a blank canvas because we anticipate be able to put artwork there. So I don't want to commit to any artwork at this point. That's something that we want to get the community involved later on and and do that. That's basically it. You saw the gardens, which I'm involved. I was the architect, and I'm involved as on the development side as well. So I think this will be a great asset for us as well to have this project there.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yes, since you're talking about it. Is this going to be considered a workforce project, market rate project?
I believe so. I believe this is,
Which one?
This is, and we have Mr. Tate here could attest to that, but I think this is going to be more of a workforce, market rate, a combination of both.
Combination? Okay. Oh.
Commission, how are you? Jimmy Tate, 12855 Biscayne Bay Drive, and the applicant. What was the question? I'm sorry, Mike.
Yes. Is this going to be considered a market rate or a workforce? Is there going to be any set-asides for
So right now, it's a market rate deal. If we're going to do our analysis, economic analysis of the project, and if we decide to go for CRA money, then obviously we'd make a component of it workforce housing, similar to the Allure. But right now, at early stage, we're just trying to get our cup. We're going to start working on our DRC and have that application in within your 1 year time frame. And then once we see what the market conditions are, we're going to pay close attention to what's going on with Sebi's project right next door to us and see what type of lease up and absorption he has in the market and understand what the demand is. And then we'll make a business decision on where the market's at. So the market's going to dictate. It would be great if we could do this all market rate. And if we have to go for CRA and do portion of it with workforce housing, then we're happy to do that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I seen one of the rentals for the studios was estimated to be like 1,088, something in that neighborhood. Am I right on that?
You mean the pricing?
Yeah, I thought I was reading it in here. I thought I saw.
We don't have any.
You have a few studios going in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And looked like it was about 1,000 and change.
Approximately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you do these studies in a vacuum based on today, and then by the time this gets developed and financed, and you have to see what the market conditions at, what the cost of construction is, and where that leads you. Obviously, you want to be competitive because you want to lease up, so you don't want to sit with an empty building. So. We're looking to do something that's really good and creative for the community and be a good partner with the development right behind us. We already started talking about doing farmers markets and art fairs and really doing some cool stuff on the street. So we actually have like a little downtown hub going on in that area. So we're excited about this project and we're excited to bring it to North Miami.
How long has your current building been up?
A long time.
I remember that before you enclosed the bottom back.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. Yeah,
it was. You had a base.
Yeah, it was open. It was a platform built. Yes. Yeah. So that was done probably. That was probably done in the 80s. Right.
It was a pretty building in its day.
Right. Yeah. It was ahead of its time.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
That concludes my presentation. If any question, I'll be more happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to open public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to come up and speak?
Good evening, Veronica Guzman, 540 Northwest 127th Street. I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the want for putting affordable housing in North Miami. I know there is a huge discrepancy with it. I have several concerns. One is definitely the infrastructure. We already have a 350 unit building behind it, and we don't have a proper water plant in place to support new construction. I'm also concerned with the elementary school next door. With the traffic calming study, they already stated that we cannot put calming devices because of the school buses. So I'm concerned with the traffic. I'm concerned with, these are elementary kids. These aren't high school children who are a little bit more aware, and even then they're distracted with cell phones. I'm concerned accidents, people getting injured, electric scooters, things of that nature. So I think 17 stories for that specific area is a little extreme. Adding to that a commercial space of a grocery store with tractor trailers coming in, again with the children. In the morning, rush hour, when the train is passing, I can only imagine the traffic congestion that's going to happen when we have 700 units now, 5 years from now, fully operational. So I'm not for it. I wish something else could be done, maybe something a little bit smaller scale, but we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Okay. Debbie?
Hi, Deborah Davies, 1165 Northeast 127th Street. First of all, the developer has done no outreach to our local community to ask for our input and discuss his plans with people in the neighborhood. And we do have a neighborhood, not just Sebastian's building. So it is premature to rush it through the Planning Commission and CUP hearing at the City Council in 5 days. As the architect said, this is a 17-story building, 348 residential units, 40,000 square foot supermarket. It's a supermarket, not a grocery store, okay? Think about that for a minute. A supermarket on Northeast 125th Street with customers and cars coming and going at all hours right across from Northeast 12th Avenue from the school pickup and drop-off area for W.J. Bryan. Traffic snaking through our small streets to avoid 125th Street, and we are a single-family community there. I live on 127th Street, and we have not yet worked through all the adverse impacts of the gardens, with 358 apartments where people are just starting to move in, and now you're considering an even more ambitious development on the next block. The plans call for the supermarket to have huge semi-trailers backing down an alley into a loading dock from Northeast 126th Street. How can that work? With climate change and flooding, all these new developments are being built with their ground floors higher than our existing properties and homes, which make our homes more prone to flooding. Our infrastructure cannot handle all these huge new developments in such a small area. We are already flooding more than ever from the Gardens residents, and I can attest to that. We anticipate problems in the neighborhood with traffic and parking when the Gardens residences get close to full occupancy, so it would be prudent to wait for that before approving an even bigger development on the next block. We need you to do your homework and ensure we have the infrastructure to support this building before you approve this massive 17-story building.
Ma'am, you're at 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other public comment? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Can we begin with Mr. Clark? Mr. Clark, any comments?
I actually had also a concern when looking at the project with the elementary school. I don't know if staff can talk to the requirements for buffering within the area.
We do have a buffering when we're talking about adjacent to residential, single family, but not to a school.
Okay. Well, yeah. Do we have someone? Go ahead.
Is there a traffic expert from the applicant here? Yes. Can you address the proximity of the school and the relationship of the traffic from the project to the school? Name and address.
Good evening, everybody. Corey Dorman, traffic engineer on the project with Kinley Horn. Offices at 2 Alhambra Plaza, Suite 500, Coral Gables, Florida, 33134. Yes, this same question came up when we submitted the traffic study to the city. The traffic data that was collected for the project and to conduct the traffic impact study analyzed 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon. That's consistent with the typical commuter rush hour periods. The reason I bring that up is because that's consistent in the morning peak hour with the school operation and the primary drop-off pickup for arrival. So the traffic study and the traffic data that was collected to conduct the analysis included all the school traffic, any turning movements, vehicles coming from each direction at 125th Street and 12th Avenue. So those volumes were captured and they were incorporated into the analysis. Since the afternoon peak period is 4 to 6, when traffic volumes are typically heaviest because of the rush hour period as folks are coming home from work, that is after school hours. School has already dismissed. So the PM peak hour is more consistent with the commuter rush hour period, but the morning does capture school arrival.
And the result?
And the results of the analysis indicate that all the study area intersections around the project meet the city's adopted level of service standard.
Now, one last question was for the developer. Is there any plans to have community outreach?
Yes, absolutely. So basically what we're trying to do right now is get our CUP approved so we preserve and reserve our density. And then when you do the DRC application for the site plan approval, we plan to do a full-scale community outreach, meet with the communities, meet with our neighbors, get all their input, and if there's tweaks that need to be made to the plans or something that they come up that we haven't thought up, we're about community. I live here. My office is here. My grandkids live here. My kids live here. So we're not going to do anything in our backyard that's going to hurt our name or our reputation. So we're trying to put a development that we think the area needs. We need housing. That's no secret. We're trying to do something that's best in class and that will service the needs of the community. And certainly we don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the children across the street. But the reality is the children across the street get dropped off in the morning. We incorporated those morning peak time hours into our analysis. And in the afternoon when they're picked up, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon is prior to. I work there. I work at the building. I see when peak time and after time is. And 5 o'clock, those kids are long gone from that school. So to answer your question, yes, we 100% absolutely plan to do all the community outreach and host a couple town hall meetings.
And then my last question is more for staff. Remind me, if this is approved tonight, they still have to come back to us? No?
No, sir. This is it for you. The next step would be to City Council, and then when they go through the DRC approval, that goes to City Council as well.
Okay. Thank you.
That it? Okay. All right, let's begin down the other end. Mr. Seyfried?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no real objections to this plan. Being adjacent to an elementary school is going to be an asset to the families that want to move into it. I recognize this is 5 years down the road, and the plan for a grocery store could well be changed, not one time, but several times between now and the time that they should actually break ground on this. This is a 5-year project because the city already has the land tied up for pickleball courts. So let the city do their recreation. We see where we are in 5 years. This is all conceptual. I understand what the developer wants to do. They want to preserve their development rights, but they can't address issues about unit costs or rental rates. 5 years out, this will be a very different economy, and if a lot of the plans the city has for better roadway improvements and better transit development, much could be changed in 5 years. So at this point in time, I have no objections, and I'm prepared to see this go forward.
Mr. Bob?
Thank you for the presentation. I think it's a really nice project. It looks good. I think it encompasses where we should be as a city in the next 5 years. My only concern, just to echo Commissioner Clark, is just really the impact on traffic around the school, right? Just because of the morning. Afternoon, I don't see it being an issue. It should be fine. But other than that, it looks good. As far as the pricing, the price points, I mean, to say anything now would be somewhat disingenuous just simply because we don't know what shape the market will take in 5 years. However, if there is an intention to have workforce housing incorporated at any point, that's something that I think could be kind of having those intentions now as the project develops. But other than that, I think it's a great project, good presentation. Thank you again.
Okay. Dr. Besson?
I think the project is well designed. I grew up in a neighborhood in New York City and lived across the street in a 16-story building from my junior high school and down the street from my public elementary school. It was very convenient to walk across the street to school, even though I was late all the time, according to my mother. I think it's very nice. Traffic flows probably will be a little more congested around 3 to 3:30. It's also convenient for people picking up their kids to run into and pick up their groceries. So I think if that ever comes to fruition, that would be very nice. Are there any plans for any exercise facilities other than, I believe, a pool that I saw in that on that deck?
Yes, there will be. There will be amenities for the residents. So it will be, a fitness center and many, many more.
Good, because as a practicing internist and obesity specialist, we need to get people exercising.
Yeah, if there's a large area dedicated for amenities, it's too premature to start putting anything in place, but there will be sufficient space for multiple activities.
Good. Thank you very much. Very nice project.
Thank you.
Mr. Each?
Derek, we can go 20 stories there, am I correct?
Through the chair, yes, sir, we can.
You're only going 17 stories. I think it's a good-looking project, and the only thing is, why are we waiting 6 years out? Heck, I'll be 82 by that time. No, I'll be, what the hell, I'll be 84 for crying out, 85, my God.
You're going to still be a young man.
Jesus, I want to go swimming in the pool over there. No, I think it's a good project, and I think it's what we need in the city. I really do. Good luck with it.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a great project, and I think it's well thought out. Robert always has the best product. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And look forward to the workshops and talk about infrastructure and community benefits and all the good things. So we look forward to those conversations. And thanks for bringing it forward, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes, question.
So there are specific timeframes set forth in the CUP that's attached to the ordinance. I just want to make sure you're comfortable with those, considering the timing. And you should use the microphone.
So Derek whispered in my ear that we need to submit the DRC within the first 12 months. So what we'll do is we'll start working on the DRC package now. We'll probably wait as long as we can, 11 months. And based upon the, if we have to proceed earlier, we will, subject to market conditions. But the goal is to probably wait, see what the study works with the infrastructure. We're in no rush, but if we had to move forward and the city wants us to move forward, we could move forward earlier. We do have an out in the lease for the paddleball courts, but we'd like to give them 5 full years, but we could start earlier.
I think there was some discussion about the possibility of extending those dates in the CUP, but that discussion probably should happen before you go to City Council.
Okay. All right. I mean, listen, time is our friend on this one, but it just depends what the city would allow.
So those dates are in the code. So,
are they subject to any kind of modification?
No, they do have a one-time extension of 6 months once you get through the DRC process.
So DRC, then you go with the plan to the City Council, and then there's condition 10 on building permits. Apply for building permits within 18 months of City Council approval of the plan. Is that also in the code?
That is.
Okay. Council, is that it?
Greater minds will have to consider this over the next few days.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thanks, Gary.
Make a
okay, I'd
motion.
like to entertain a motion to approve the item.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Michael McDermott,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenny Each,
Yes.
Commissioner Kevin Seifried,
Yes.
Commissioner Edwidge Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Bob, and Commissioner Robert Besson.
Yes.
Okay,
Motion
it's a 5-0
carries.
vote. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Just 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, 6.
I can't count. I'm the guy that's missing a finger.
Okay. So anyway, okay. Any old business to come before us? Any new business, staff? Anything, Derek?
Mr. Chair, no new business. Just to reiterate, we do have a special meeting for the November 5th meeting will not take place because that is election day.
Right.
And we have moved that to November the 14th, which is the Thursday of the next week.
Okay.
Okay, and it doesn't, Jennifer, I was appointed, I believe, by Councilman Galvin, so or is it till they get sworn in? Is that how it works?
I believe we did make an amendment to the LDRs to provide that you guys stay secure in your seats until your the successor.
Replacement.
Exactly. There's a transition period, and so during that transition period, you guys get to keep your seats.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Being none, thank you, Derek. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's Jennifer and Gary and Safi, thank you all. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Motion to adjourn? Second, all in favor?